Good evening. So, pardon my hoarseness. I said, you know what? I'm going on. Forget about it. Make noise. I hope that noise sounds like wisdom. And if it doesn't, then so be it. At least you contributed to the entropy of the universe. Because isn't that what we're here to do? Contribute to the entropy? I'd say so. Well, whether or not that's what I'm here to do, that's what I'm doing. So that said, let's contribute to some entropy together. It's been an interesting couple of days with respect to the technology here, and so you guys have to be a little patient with me as I go through this process here. We'll see if the internet holds up, if my software decides to do its thing and not skip too much. And if it does, then so be it. It be what it be. I'll try to keep the images static so that I don't get too hung up by the fact that things aren't moving. Excuse me. Almost there. I was feeling better yesterday, but I don't know, today it's just sore. Very tight. I had a busy day today. Creative explosion. One of those type of days. And, I was looking at really some logistical things, practical stuff with respect to the use of some of the tools, tarot and so on, combined with some other things. And, it's nice to have diagrams available with respect to positions and elements, the signs, the planets, these type things. And so I thought, it'd be nice to have a diagram that I could reference very quickly while doing tarot and while using the bead oracle. And I've used overlays in the past where I take a piece of plastic or like a transparency and I'll overlay it on the space that I'm working and use a dry erase marker. I find that very effective and useful. I'm going to show you that tonight with respect to this little pentacle that I put together today. But the pentacle itself turns out to be very useful. And so let me put these aside here. I don't know. I just feel like I don't want to use these today. This is the Hermetic Tarot. And this is a great deck for not only just exploring the story and the one truth, but also correlating it to the other systems. It's very similar to what Lon Duquette has done or Crowley, just from a slightly different perspective. And I like this deck a lot. So I thought, why not? I'm sort of divinely inspired. I saw a few things today that kind of, made me think I should pull it out. Let's see what it has to say. Now, there's an oracle that I showed yesterday in my lantern here, right? And the beads that I used for this oracle, I'm going to be using tonight with respect to showing the use of this pentacle. It's just a basic wood disc. Actually, what this is the top to a tin canister that's used for, you're storing flour or sugar and so forth that come in those staged sized canisters for your kitchen. This particular one was one that was been discarded, and these were the tops. And so I have a couple of these. I have one in this size and one that's a size up. And this happens to fit perfectly inside of the dish, which comes in very handy, and I'm going to show you that usage tonight, where we just go ahead and put it in the dish, and then we place the beads on here, and it kind of creates that sort of graph for us to utilize as a surface to read the beads. It's very effective with respect to looking at the houses, the signs, the planets, and these other things. Or we can flip it over, and we have the elemental correspondences as well. Right, sort of the pentacle reading. At the top we have spirit, and then we have heart to the right, mind to the left, manifestation to the bottom left, and then the will on the bottom right. Okay, let's let the camera catch up, pardon me. Okay, and now so this can be laid down as well, and then the beads put down, and you can kind of see where they land, look at those different correspondences, and then from, kind of gaining some insight through the differences between these, and so forth, and how these interplay. The blue moving into this is what creates that green. Let's just let that catch up, excuse me. the interplay between the things that are moving in this stage is what creates that green. So by understanding this is going to let us know what manifests that. The interplay between these two is what creates this area here with respect to how it manifests in the lower world. So we're going to want to look at that interplay as well. We're going to want to look at this interplay as well, right? And so this is a very effective tool for going through the reading process and, how to apply this, these different kind of transitions between the elements. Obviously, the elements themselves, the overall energy of those spaces themselves is an important component, and you need to go through that process mentally to look at the environment, the thing, and how those interplays create an ebb and a flow. The idea of that vortex that's creating those collisions, and that's an important work. But it's equally, if not more important, to look at the transitions between those, right? And so when we're reading these, and I'm going to be putting some beads in here in a moment, when we're reading these, we want to kind of look at, going from heart into mind. We want to go from heart into pentacle. We may want to go from mind into will. And then obviously we can look in spirit and how spirit evolves into all these. And so as we consider those interplays, this is a very effective means. One interesting side effect as well, which you'll see visually here in a moment, is when the beads come in, some of them stay in the center and some of them seem to gravitate to the outside as if they're kind of an outer influence as opposed to a direct influence. And I find that that's a very good sort of positional meaning, so to speak, with respect to the influences when using the elemental. With respect to using the zodiacal, there's a similar quality. I find that the ones that are inside are pointing to the actual place, whether it lands on a sign or one of the deacons. The point is that where it lands matters. And if it's on the outside, what it is more of the outer influence, which I typically read as the courts. The prince and queen and king or knight doing their dance, and then the aces and the princesses on the outside of that. And those are non-corporeal, so to speak. They haven't really been made physically manifest yet, and so they don't really appear in the bead the same way they do in the tarot. That's on purpose because, I want to try to avoid the urge, the compulsion to personify the court cards as individual people, to anthropomorphize. The goal here is to understand what they really are, which is what they are the trigrams. They're the interplay of the elements. They're the product of the crashing of these positive and negative forces. And so we have to be cautious not to just pigeonhole the meaning into a dark-haired, light-skinned person with green eyes, right? Like it's much more important that we understand the interplay here. And so by using this type of diagram, which I've color-coded in the basic colors, right? Red for fire, blue for water, yellow for air, and green for earth. As well here, same color system. I wanted to keep the same basic language in the color throughout, and I'm going to do that with any tools that I introduce to the process here. Any of the colors that are introduced, unless specified otherwise, which will be rare, will be consistent. All the meanings will be consistent. Anywhere you see blue will be the same blue that is referenced to any other blue, right? The blue that's in this particular object here, which I'll be speaking to in a moment, is the same blue that we see in these water signs, right? That same yellow of that sun is the same yellow that we see right here. And so at the same time, we can consider, again, the transitions and recognize that these transitions are ultimately all that there is. What these are very similar to those polarity columns, right? The pillars, the range. All they really do is point to the extremes of the range here, which is turns out infinite. And so what these actually are just simply the personification of the extremes of the elements. They don't ever actually exist as perfect red or perfect blue or perfect yellow. Everything is an interplay in between. And so I threw some other symbols in just to kind of clarify that. For instance, in the cup we have a red heart. There's a red pair of lips that are below an ear. So this is mostly in the state of listening, but sometimes it can speak if it knows how. Same thing here. This is mostly in the state of speaking, but underneath is a little ear, and every once in a while, if it knows how, can switch into listening. I have some symbols here with respect to the heart, and here with respect to some math. A plus B equals C. And it kind of just displays the difference between the elements, kind of in a kind of iconic manner, right? Here I have a little earth and moon revolving each other for the pentacle, for the earth. Now here we have this idea of a rejection with an eye open. So it's typically in the state of rejecting, and every once in a while can see and potentially, unfortunately, lament. And here we have the state of lament and occasionally the state of rejection. And so when we put these together, we have this beautiful kind of system of speaking, listening, rejection, and lament that combine to create this conversation, which is the interplay of these elements, creating all of the probabilities and possibilities unfolding through our experience. And so as we use tools like the tarot, the I Ching, other oracles, channeling, which we're going to speak about tonight as well, and these other techniques, to ultimately to come to the truth. The truth is not knowledge. The truth is a way of interrogating that knowledge. It's a way of being. So that when we come to knowledge, we know how to approach it, how to process it, the order that we process it, the language that we should use to understand the symbols of the knowledge that we're being presented. And in doing so, it allows us to, in a sense, see it for its true form from every angle at once. It allows us to, due to the fact that we now know the truth, and we can embody the entire universe. When we are met with a phenomena, we get to interrogate that phenomena from literally every perspective at the same time. We view it from the perspective of every particle in its surrounding, and are able to, through the act of channeling, take that information in at once and can know the thing in a way that we couldn't otherwise. And that access comes from understanding the truth. That everything that we see and hear is really us speaking. And so, while we're listening to that, when we recognize that that's us speaking, we switch into the state of speaking. It's quite beautiful. And so we're listening and speaking at the same time. The conversation's happened and we're there. That's in the pocket. That's the point where channeling can begin. That's the stage where you've set the tone. The resonance is correct. That where you are in the same vibration as your environment, from an intellectual perspective, from an emotional perspective, from an energetic perspective, so that the flow is natural. It doesn't require any kind of effort, because effort is a hindrance. If you have to try, then it's not going to work. And it's time to kind of just step back for a minute, get yourself sort of together, and try to remember what you're doing here, which is simply an act of recollection and conversation. Because once the conversation takes place, I don't care if the conversation takes place between you and a piece of glitter on your desk. Once you recognize that that glitter is you speaking in the language of light to your eye, and you embody that piece of glitter, and you recognize that that is now the two of you are the same being just experiencing itself, the conversation's happening. And the universe begins to pay attention. There's a resonance that begins to take place between the other things that want to be recognized by you, by itself, that want attention. And it builds inertia. It creates a gravity, a karmic desire to know the other. And all of the others come together. It's just sort of a natural almost like a black hole pulling together anything in its vicinity. Only this occurs on a resonance level across time and space, so it's not really just within the confines, the environs of the black hole itself. It has nothing to do with the point of no return. There is no actual wall of the difference between the energy that can and cannot escape. There's nothing to escape from. So, we're going to talk about axioms tonight. Kitten, how's it going? We're going to talk about a few more axioms tonight. We covered a couple yesterday, and we're going to continue on that list. That's a lot of fun. We're going to talk about channeling divine intelligence. You know, I've discussed channeling here on the channel a few times, but I think it's important that we talk about divine intelligence and what that means. You know, there's a lot of talk floating around about the Solomonic magic and the intelligences associated with that. Various other forms of ancient occult knowledge that are now kind of being thrust into the mainstream for entertainment purposes. It's so silly. And so I thought it'd just be nice to maybe, you know, give it a once-over, a quick primer, you know, dip our toe in the knowledge from a real perspective so that we can recognize what it is we're talking about. And if it is something that you feel like you're in the position to want to access and you have the power to do so, then we can talk about the real way to do that. And so we can stop playing with toys and we can start talking to divine intelligence. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Trinket story time, I can't get enough of that. I love that. It's just so great. The wisdom that comes from it is, it's the best. And so we're going to have fun with that. We'll do some tarot, some oracle, some bead oracle, some I Ching. Right. Today I'm going to be using the Hermetic Tarot because reasons. I was divinely inspired to use this deck here today. And so I haven't shuffled it or anything. I just kind of took it out and I'm going to use it the way it stands. Well, you know, just going to pull from the top and see how it goes. It's a great deck. It's black and white. I love it. The artwork's amazing. It was created by individuals who are openly members of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, and it is the symbolism is good. It's an accurate deck. It passes the test. And it's really something. I think you're going to like it. If you haven't seen the deck, it's really something. So that's going to be a lot of fun as well. And so, you know, and there's a couple of other things that as we progress through the evening that we may wind up bumping into, because what I always like to do is to kind of keep the conversation open with respect to a question and answer with the chat, question and answer with anybody else who has any particular maybe puzzle pieces they feel like they're missing to get to the full understanding of a subject, or ultimately that they have an understanding of a subject and maybe are potentially in a position to want to explore the practical side of that and how they can maybe more effectively apply some of these techniques in their life from a practical perspective. That's what I'm here to do. That's what I'm here to do. Is to try to make those tools accessible to everyone. It's really fun to grab the books and read the information and learn about all this great stuff. But ultimately, there has to be a point, too, where you go, okay, well, now it seems like it. I mean, in the back of my mind, there's this sort of thing that's poking at me that this can be used for something, that it's useful. Turns out it is. And the thing it can be used for is nothing short of manifesting your will at will. So that sounds kind of great. I wouldn't mind that, right? I highly encourage you to give it a shot. You know, it's one of those things like any other muscle. The more you use it, the more effective it becomes. The stronger it becomes, the more endurance, the more often you can become successful at using it. And so all of these things are just a really good excuse for taking some of the time that we spend doing things that maybe don't serve us, or only partially satisfy some need that we think we have. And rather, we can spend that time getting in touch with parts of us that we know we've wanted to explore, but for one reason or another, it's been blocked. There's a lot of energy floating around right now toward this work. It's conducive. Karma is allowing it to happen. It's nudging it along. far be it from us to argue with karma. And so my recommendation is that we remain open. And in doing so, we invite the truth. So that said, I think that a good place to start, I think, would be to just pull a random card, right? So let's just pull a random card, see what we're in store for the evening, and then go from there. And, I'm not really sure where to start. I guess we'll start with the Axioms after that, but maybe the cards will tell us something different. So I'm just going to move this aside, and eventually we're going to make some room here. We're going to go through this process of taking a look at the pentacle, and specifically, how it's utilized in a reading with the beads, which is a really, really, it's a fun exercise. I'm going to put the sun in there first. Right now we're in Scorpio, so I'm going to point that circle at the current period of time, right? So right now we're in Scorpio, so that circle is going to be pointing at Scorpio. Let's let that camera catch up. Okay, very good. And you notice we're in the cup. We're in the 5, 6, 7, right, of cups are the deacons that are relevant to the period of time right now. I'm going to put this back in the lantern. Doesn't quite show up on the camera the same as it does in real life. Let's line that up. I mean, if we're going to illustrate it, let's just tell the truth. Okay. That's what we're here to do, right? At the end of the day, what we're here to do is to tell the truth. All right, that's the point. So let's just make sure we do that as much as we can. So, here's one truth. Listen to how interesting this sounds. Love that. Something about brass ringing. That just... love it. Let's pull a random card. So how did everybody experience their eclipse? Was that pretty awesome? How great. Gorgeous. Wow, was it special? That was a good one. Especially all night long, there was that beautiful dance between that pink Mars dancing around Sirius and the moon, Betelgeuse, all lined up all night. It was quite a sight. And then when it went, man. Okay, the Prince of Cups. Now I know the card says King of Cups, but this is specifically a Golden Dawn deck, and they have a certain symbolism with respect to the fact that the Prince thinks he's going to become the King, but he's not actually. So this is the Prince of the Chariot of Waters. Prince of the Chariot of Waters, and what this refers to is the Prince, which is the element of air. All of the princes refer to the element of air. And in this particular case, what this refers to is when we think of air, it is mind, communication, speech, words, thoughts, right? Ideas. The desire to put things into motion. The desire to put them into motion. Put what into motion? In this case, it's the cup, which means the heart. To move hearts. The desire to move hearts. That's what this card means. And so the overall energy tonight is going to be moving hearts. And there's a lot of ways to do that. One of my favorite ways is truth. You show it truth in the heart. Ooh. Every time. It's awesome. That's what the heart does. It jumps at truth. could see it from a mile away. So, I think we'll begin with the axioms. I think we did 2 or 3, or 3 or 4 of them. I don't remember if we did 3 or 4. We'll review. And the idea here is to kind of get through this list. It's a great list that was it was compiled by an individual who wrote a series of books related to magical working, the Magician's Handbook, which was a great book that had some basic stuff in it, and then a bunch of really good charts, graphs, techniques that were really just a good kind of cheat sheet. And kind of compiled and whittled down the axioms, and then added some stuff from different sources to create this sort of list of the rules of the magical mind. This is a very personal list that this individual wrote, and however, it's sort of been adopted as a secondary form of the axioms. It's quite good. So, and that's why I bring it here, because regardless of your opinion about their authority, the information is good, right? And that's what matters. And so we ran a couple of them yesterday, and I think from the ones that we already addressed, you could see how it is very similar to, say, like, for instance, what you'd see in the Corpus Hermeticum or the Emerald Tablet, right? And certainly in things along the lines of Kabbalion and other commentaries. And so these correspondences are not accidental. I mean, when it comes to magic and to the divinatory process of which is really just ultimately accessing the same information, it's the idea of opening the channel and just changing the way you use it. When you're using it for divination, it's simply taking the information and then synthesizing it into words so that it can be communicated. When you're using it for magic, you take it in and you synthesize it in order to be utilized by your will, as opposed to your voice. Basically, you give it to your wand instead of your sword, with the intent of creating a pentacle of a different shape. That's all. The voice has a different pentacle in mind. It speaks with the intent of creating knowledge, which is simply a point of phenomena designed to be shared. Now, on the flip side, channeling information from divine with the intent of it being installed into the will as opposed to the voice, i.e. your wand and not your sword, has a different agenda. It does not want to be shared. It wants to be had. And by doing so, you, in a sense, embody that intelligence to a degree. It installs into you. You become greater for it because it becomes part of you. And now, there's a very beautiful thing that happens when that occurs. What happens is that you now have that piece of it in you and you in it that can resonate whenever you want. You can now wake it up anytime, and you have access to that intelligence from that point forward. It's just sort of like a part of you that you can now awaken. Because it's not sort of a part of you, it's you. And there's a beauty in that. So, how do we do that? It's really interesting because it's something that I've mentioned sort of openly many times, and I think 3 times tonight. And it's a very simple technique that we're already doing. We just hear ourselves speaking to ourselves and then choose to reject that. We're in a state of rejection. And that's okay. Because when we're in a state of rejection, we can recognize that there's not only a state that we're in, but there are other possible states. And so there's growth that can happen just through the knowing that we aren't where we think we want to be, but at least we now know that there is a place that is where we want to be, and that there is a path to get there. Okay? And so if that's you, you're in the right place, because that's what we're going to talk about, and we're going to We're going to discuss actual, real, practical things to do right now, tonight, to achieve that. Or to at least get yourself on a path toward becoming closer to achieving that through your understanding. And once you're closer is great. Closer is my favorite thing, because then I get to sneak up behind you and push you off the cliff. It's great. Okay? And that's what I'm here for. And don't worry. Don't be afraid. Because when you get to the bottom, I'll be there to catch you. I know I'm the one that pushed you off. And I know I'm the one on the bottom, and that seems a little weird, but it'll make sense when you get there. Trust me. So, Prince of Cups. You know, I get that card a lot for me. That comes up for me a lot. So I think it's very relevant that it came up tonight. There's a few cards that come up for me a lot. That's one of them. We'll see if some of my other cards come up tonight. Another one is the Hangman. Something tells me that that's not going to be coming up very much longer. Something tells me that it's time to maybe change that motto. We'll see. You know, trying to create a new pentacle is a big job. Ask any woman. It's like having a baby. It requires the other. It requires a specific intent, right? To decide, I want to take this thing that I am and forget what it is that I think that it is and allow it to be what it's always been. And that's a fun exercise. And, you know, the cool part about that is that you recognize that the thing that you always were is a blank slate. That's so cool. There's nothing to return to. The thing that you are is nothing. So we get to decide what we are. And no, we're already doing that. We're already deciding. Now, how do we make that decision? What is the actual means and method? Well, it's called the Axioms of Magick. So we already covered a couple. The law of worldview. Worldview is a biggie for how we create this personality, this persona, this universe that we play in, manifest through the idea of worldviews, the assumptions, the things we plant in our head that we don't even think about because we just know it to be true and we don't even interrogate whether or not it's true anymore after we've come to that conclusion. An idea of a worldview is that solid matter does not pass through solid matter. That's a useful one because it allows us to do things like, you know, sit, stand, you know, live, experience three-dimensional reality without disintegrating, you know, small things. And it's these worldviews that let us sort of experience the totality of possibility without spending in eternity looking at every possibility. We discern what we put our attention on through worldview, which leads to the second, which is the law of attention. And what attention basically says is that worldviews have inertia. If we come up with an idea that we think is true and we install that into our worldview, what the law of attention says is basically the more we look for evidence to agree with that worldview, the more we will find. Okay, the more evidence we look for, the more we'll find. When we put our attention towards something, we can find what we're looking for in that thing if we have the eyes to see. Okay? It's the idea of this, we go back into our minds and we look at old symbol systems and we bring them back forward and we apply it to what we're seeing so that we can just be comfortable with what we're looking at. But we don't have to do that. We can recognize that we're a blank slate and we can take the thing for what it is instead of trying to make it what we thought it used to be. How silly is that? That's how we live. So silly. The law of synchronicity. Some interpret this as developing an ongoing dialogue between the perceiver and the consciousness of the universe. This dialogue is overt to the degree the perceiver is receptive to it. There is a conversation happening right now. Things that seem like a coincidence aren't. There's no such thing. The dialogue is overt to the degree that we are receptive. Truth is truth. Understanding is not a requisite of truth. Understanding is a perk for the one that is perceiving, it's a benefit to them to have some satisfaction that there is a connection to the thing being perceived, i.e. understanding. But it's not necessary for truth to happen. The truth is the truth regardless of our perception, understanding, knowledge. Why? Because we don't need to perceive it. We are it. So, I think that's where we stopped. Let's see. What was the fourth law? Yep, that's right. Okay, so the fourth law is the law of relative truth. Every statement is true in one sense, false in one sense, and meaningless in one sense. This is a function of one's vantage point, or worldview. In the words of Hassan ibn Sabah, nothing is true, everything is permissible. Actually, I think we did review that yesterday, right? Nothing is true, everything is permissible. Perfect. The law of pragmatism. This is a very important magical principle. Write this one down. The law of pragmatism. If it works, it's true. If it works, it's true. A worldview is only valid if it enables its perceiver to accomplish its goals. The more successful a worldview is in fulfilling a goal structure that its viewer possesses, the more valid it is said to be. By this definition, few people can be said to be completely insane. Right? I mean, think about that. It works for them. Their worldview, no matter how nuts it seems to us, works for them. The changes they attempt to make succeed for them, and therefore their system works. They're not crazy. It works for them. However, few people can be completely sane either. So true. If it works, it's true. A worldview is only valid if it works. That's why the beads work. They're tested. They show the truth. The math is there. The law of paradox. This is a great one. No worldview may encompass the whole world. This is kind of like the all in the all and the all. This is a good one too. Perk up for this one. No worldview may encompass the whole world. Two models may conflict with each other and still be true in their proper context. That's so big, and I'm going to reread that, don't worry. Two people may experience the same event, yet perceive entirely different occurrences. Rationality is limited by the intellect. The world is not. The world is not bound by the confines of worldview. The trick is to switch from one model to another as it becomes appropriate. Please see Law of Pragmatism. Gabrielle, how's it going? Good to see you. Have a gong. I just want to remind you that that sound you just heard is the sound of your own voice speaking to you in the song of vibration. You have a pretty voice. You want to hear it again? What this is a piece of brass with a little sheet of cotton and then a glass bowl and then beads and then a piece of wood that's making that noise. So it's wood, glass, and metal together, and each one sandwiched in between with cotton. And on top is a piece of pewter angel. So that is the choir. That is this sound of you speaking. Love that. So there's something to that, right? I'm going to reread paradox and pragmatism because they are the rules for magic. If it works, it's true. A worldview is only valid if it enables its perceiver to accomplish its goals. The more successful a worldview is in fulfilling the goal structure of its viewer, the more valid it's said to be. Law of paradox. No worldview may encompass the whole world. Two models may conflict with each other and still be true in their proper context. So if you consider that, we get to build our own symbol system. We get to build our own language. We get to build our own connections. If it works, it's true. You know, there's a very important ritual in the magical circle, the ceremonial magic, ritual magic. It's called the Lesser Banishing Ritual of the Pentagram. The Lesser Banishing Ritual of the Pentagram. And it's a daily exercise. At least once a day you should be doing this. That just it's a way to, frankly, well, there's a lot of things that it is, but it's a way to put yourself in the state of understanding ritual, put yourself and your will in the state of showing up every day. It's a way to memorize the directions, memorize the elements. It has a lot of uses. But one of the things that it does ultimately too is that it puts us in this position of understanding that we can create a language system. When you first approach it, you follow the rules that are set forth, whether it was Rigardi's book or whatever book you got your LBRP rules from, Crowley or whoever. And there's the little diagram of if you're starting with air and you're invoking, you start with air, and if you're wanting to banish, you go away from air, like that. And you start at that pen and you draw the pentagram, right? So it's very basic, sort of low magic vibe. I always love that. I'm a low magic kind of guy. I really am. I'm just a math nerd, so I fit in the Hermetic, but I'm really just a wannabe Zen Buddhist that likes numbers. So it's a beautiful system. But, there seems to be a little bit of an argument, and rightfully so, as to some of the methodology of where to start and where to end with respect to the pentacle, right? So if you're doing a banishing ritual, as an example, and you want to banish something that's related, say, with respect to the element of fire, the basic idea here is that you would essentially want to go away from fire. So you would start here and you would draw your pentacle like that. Okay? But now you're ending on fire, and it just seems like an odd thing, as opposed to wanting to go away from it. So you would want to land where your last stroke would be the one after this, so that you would land on, say, something opposite, as opposed to landing on it if you're in a state of banishing. And I tend to agree with that, as an example. But now the point is that, guess what? Guess what? You get to decide. There is the idea of the thought form, and there is the idea that the power that's behind the LBRP has been built up over thousands of people, over hundreds of years doing this ritual. So there is some intelligence that's built up that you can access by doing it the way that the other people have done it, and it resonates. But if you do it on your own, it's equally effective as long as you are in the place when doing the ritual. It doesn't matter what direction you start your pentacle from if you know you're doing it properly. Not think it. And it's the same idea. And that's what we're talking about here when it comes to the idea of the law of pragmatism and the law of paradox. And there's two more things that I want to talk about. These next two laws. And these are going to completely encompass now the things we need to know in order to channel divine intelligence. The next law is called the law of unity. Everything through all space and time is linked, either directly or indirectly, to everything else. Everything in all space and time is linked, either directly or indirectly, to everything else. Everything. Every particle is connected to every other particle. Every empty space is connected to every other empty space. Every empty space is connected to every particle. There is no distance between you and I. The law of reflection. This one's going to seem very familiar to anyone who has been in this channel. The law of reflection. Love that word, reflection. The microcosm is the macrocosm. The part contains the whole. As above, so below. This is one of the most common and widely applicable axioms of magic, reputedly first written by the fabled Emerald Tablet of Hermes Trismegistus. Truly without lies, certainly and most definitely that which is below is like that which is above, and that which is above is like that which is below, for the accomplishment of the miracle of the one thing. And just as all things have come from one, through the meditation of one, so all things have been derived from this one thing. By analogy, its father is the sun, its mother is the moon. The wind has carried it in its belly. Its nourishment is the earth, and its father of every complete thing in the whole world. Its strength is intact if turned towards the earth, separate the earth from fire. the fine from the gross, gently and very carefully. Every speck contains the image or pattern of the entire universe in the same way that a fragment of laser holograph still contains the entire original image. Each person contains this cosmic image. When the inner image is tuned, brought into resonance with the outer image, a change in one will be simultaneous with the change in the other. To perceive one is to perceive the other. This is the basis for the mantic system of the I Ching or the Tarot. It is also one reason why you could say humanity is created in God's image. The universe is within us and without us. Okay. So what we've talked at the end of the day, what we're getting at, the actual thing we're pointing to here is worldview is the idea of the things that we hear without interrogating, that we just assume. But there's also this concept of the fact that we also, through the act of discerning what words we want to utilize, can take agency over that process of forming that worldview, of crafting it. We have the power to do that. It does not just have to be an automatic process. And in fact, what we can do is through the proper work, put it back into an automatic state. So it is an automatic process, but through right thinking, it becomes automatic right thinking instead of automatic zombie thinking. We become in complete conversation and unison with our divine mind and filling our heart, and our heart being washed clean by divine mind, and that being a constant conversation that requires no effort. Our job is to simply hear it and speak it, and that's channeling. That process is something that we have the ability to experience. We just have to be open to it. I was open to it, and it took me some time, and I worked at it, and I thought I wasn't going to get it, and I gave up, and I tried again, and I gave up, and I tried again, and here I am, and it works, and I've seen it, and I want you to have it. Because what happens when you have it is that we get to talk across time and space. We get to feel each other without having to be in the same room. We get to know the totality of everything. And we get to talk about it forever. We get to experience it from our own perspective and share that unique perspective with an infinite being. I want you to have it so bad. So that said, by applying the axioms, which is really just a matter of going through the mental exercise of ignoring your brain, feeling the words, and then going back and reading them again, understanding them mentally, and then processing that and installing it into your spirit. How can it be utilized? What does it mean with respect to my understanding of the things that I'm looking at? There are techniques that we can utilize for stretching our perception and opening up some of these alternate modes of perception. It's sort of like stretching exercises before a gymnastics routine, or a cross-country run, right? We need to stretch our intuition. We need to use it, let it get strong, let it fail so it can succeed. The reward of that is everything. It's true. Did you see the moon? There's something else I want to show you. I was digging around today for stuff, and look what I found. Oh my gosh. I've been looking for him forever. It's another one of these manifestation things. Wait till you see what this is. I have 2 words for you. 1977, Kenner. If there's anyone in the room that understands the significance of the words, 1977, Kenner. How freaking cool is this thing? So this is just interesting. I was looking through stuff today. I was looking for beads. I was looking for containers. I was looking for all kinds of stuff for things that I'm making and doing and having and being. And I found it. I have an Admiral Akbar that's also a 77 Kenner that's completely intact. He's missing his lightsaber, which, I mean, it's rare to find one with it. I may just jump on eBay and buy one to have him complete. But that said, how cool is that? The cape is in perfect condition. All right? Like, really. Check him out. And there's a little hole where his lightsaber used to be. And so I'll just have him do a little as above, so below. And I'll put him back over there by the moon. But yeah, isn't that interesting? Isn't that cool? I bumped into to a Darth Vader when I was just looking for some things related to the oracles here. Well, you know what this is? This is really great too. Let me show you this. We had a contest here in the county that I live in. I live in a county called Ulster in upstate New York. Anyway, long story short, they had an art contest, and the winner of that contest had their art put on the I voted sticker. You know how I know? Because I voted. And anyway, so I have my sticker, and look how cool it is. This little kid drew this picture, and it is on. Everyone in Ulster County got this sticker when they voted. Look at this. This is the sticker that won. How cool. That's a progressive county, I tell you what. This, you know what it reminds me of? Aqua Teen Hunger Force. I don't know, something about this reminds me of that kind of vibe. Just sort of, but he won. Isn't that great? One of these days I'm going to look at the symbolism of it and I'm going to read it as if it's a tarot card. Yeah. That's a cool sticker. I'm glad I voted today because that's why I got the sticker. Because if I hadn't have voted, I wouldn't have got the sticker. So good thing I voted. So anyway, that was fun. So did everyone here vote? Cute and chaotic. I love that. That sounds about right. Just for that, you get a gong. Oh, by the way, I'm warning you, I'm in a very silly mood. It's true, so we're gonna have a lot of fun tonight. But I decided to grab this particular deck. I don't know. I was divinely inspired to use the Hermetic Tarot tonight, and so we're gonna see what we see, because it's a black and white deck, and so you know, it's gonna be interesting. We get to paint the colors with our minds. The mind likes painting colors. Color doesn't exist on the molecular level. That's right. The universe is gray. All of this is in our minds. I'm just going to jump real quick, make a coffee, come back, and then we're going to read all kinds of... We're going to read everything. We're reading everything. Everything's being read. We're going to read this piece of wood. We're going to read these little glass balls. We're going to read these angels. We're going to read Kabbalion. I'm going to read the contents of your soul across time space and give it back to you so that when you hear it, it makes you vibrate. That's going down when I get back. And so in the meantime, then, let me make my coffee. I'll see you in a couple minutes. And all we have to do is pray that Kerrig hurries up. Yeah, what you're referring to here in the chat is something that I've had to speak to a few people about. And, it actually can come up as a side effect when attempting lucid dreaming, depending upon your process. And so I try to teach the correct method of lucid dreaming so that you don't fall into the trap of potentially slipping into a very panicked state, which can be really, anyone who's experienced that idea. I experienced that as well, the gong, the explosion. At times, and it's really jarring. It's the brightest light you could imagine seeing, and yet it doesn't hurt your eyes. It's the loudest sound you could imagine hearing, but it doesn't hurt your ears. And it happens for such a short period of time that you can't describe how short it is, but it's so significant that it's like an explosion in your mind, and it will jar you awake. And sometimes it happens to the degree where that it slips you into the transition between alpha and beta. So you're not quite awake yet, and your body has not switched back into the state that you have agency over your faculties, your physical So it can be really jarring to be awake and unable to move, or to feel some of those other sensations of, say, the vertigo of falling into infinity, because your body does not recognize gravity since you're in the transitional state and your inner ear is out of the game, right? And so it's a very interesting sensation. When you're able to give into it and recognize that that's actually the place we are. We're in the middle of nowhere. There is no gravity. We are right now floating. There is no land underneath us. So when you have a sleep paralysis moment, that's truth. But that said, though, going into that moment on purpose is the abyss, and it can be terrifying, if you're not ready, or if you don't have someone to kind of guide you through it, to be aware of the fact that, hey, you're going to be okay. It's going to be terrifying for a sec. It's like jumping out of an airplane, and then you realize, whoa, wait, this view is amazing, and you're too busy looking around to care. It's like having a whole new sense turned on. Forget about it, and like suddenly you can see again. No. It's a new sense. You're seeing through an eye that you didn't used to have, that you've always had. So it's the idea of like, that's sort of the beginnings of the recognition that you are sensitive to a certain experience that others need to work for. But if you have the right training, you could utilize as a tool. Okay? So that's it. That's actually a good thing, and it is a terrifying thing. I'm glad to see that you laugh about it with your mom now. That's kind of cool. Well, it's important to just remain grounded, right? Remember your feet. Think about your feet. Don't forget the silver cord. You can learn to like it. You can learn to recognize what it is. And what it is the body experiencing totality and being uncomfortable with it. But the mind recognizes what it is, and so it gives into the discomfort, knowing that it will eventually become normal. It won't be uncomfortable anymore, because it isn't uncomfortable. Uncomfortable is an adjective. We choose to experience it with that as the definition. It's not uncomfortable, it's different. The silver cord, right there, there you go. Gabrielle got it, right? Yeah. The silver cord is the thing that connects our body and our astral body. And it's always connected. And just as long as we remember that cord is there, we're safe. That's the point. And what we can do is remember our feet. And it kind of sucks us back into our body when we get scared. It's like jarring us back awake. It's just a technique. Another one is to have a rubber band around your wrist. And so, while you're in the state, just give it a whoop, and it'll kind of jar you back. Yeah. It's an analogy. The silver cord is it's an analogy. It's the umbilical between the true self up there and down here. There's also the implication of the cord that you were connected to your mother with, that is never severed. And so there's a continuous line from the original woman to you, and that line is unbroken. And that cord also exists, right? And so, one of the things that you're connected with is divine feminine, but you're also connected with the form of that holographically manifested as your reflection, your divine intelligence of that, which is your body. Different from someone else's body. Like we have Gabrielle, we have Kitten, two separate forms of divine feminine reflected through their current state energetically. And that's why your form changes over time, day to day, minute to minute. You can have a good hair day and a bad hair day, and it has a lot more to do with your energy than it does the humidity. So, but that said, that's, that people have experienced that. I know people who explained to me things they were going through, and I was able to explain to them what's happening. Just the knowledge alone can make it a bit easier if it's something that you deal with on a chronic level. And there are ways that you can work around it so that is not the experience, but you can recognize when it's happening and to sort of, and trust me, I'm speaking from experience, to prevent it from getting to that point where you have the explosion and you just kind of sneak around that spot so that you can get past it and it doesn't occur. That's what the training does. And if you want to talk about that, let me know. When we're doing any kind of private sessions or any kind of work that's related to that or any kind of teaching or anything else, let me know and we'll talk about that particular technique. I'm happy to do it. It will literally alleviate suffering in your life. And so it is nothing short of the goal of my work. And so please use me for that. Please use me for that, please. So, let's see. We did, I did a quick cursor on the axioms. We talked a little bit about channeling. We'll get there again a little bit later. Let's read some cards in the meantime. I'm glad. Oh yeah, that's a biggie. The foot trick's great, right? I mean, we use it to ground anyway. Like any of us who have kind of like done the Wiccan thing, where do you put your crystals to clean them? You stick them in the ground. What do you need to do when you need to get some energy out of you and you don't have your tourmaline laying around, right? Where's my rose quartz? You run outside, barefoot, you stick them in the grass. And it works. There's nothing better. There's a beauty in that. And it's the same idea of recognizing what the feet represent. So yeah. Yeah, and that's it. Timing is everything. You approach everything on its own, allowing it to unfold and being open to the when being out of your control. Like, it's okay. Forget the when. All right. So let's do this. Just since I've got it all sort of set up here, let's do the beads real quick, and then we'll jump to the tarot right after that. And I'm just going to show you a couple of unique ways that I've been reading them since I've been employing the pentacle here. Now, as I've said, usually what I've done in the past is I've read the beads with a transparency over it that I've drawn on with a dry erase marker. But this is a much more effective method, I think, that it offers some interesting opportunities that come up that don't otherwise. And you'll see what I mean as far as the beads going on the outside as well as on the inside. And we're going to read it both ways. We're going to read it the zodiacal. Let's let that camera catch up. Oh, jeez. I forgot about that. And then the pentacle. All right. And so we're going to look at both methods. And the proper way of... yeah, you know what? It's funny how quick my heart just sank. Because I really am excited to show you guys. And I recognize that this is just going to be one of those 10-second behind lag moments of me waiting to point at something silly like, oh, look. But it's important. Like... What do I do? So, but that said, though, it's a fun process to kind of look at all the different ways you can read these. And when employing something like the pentacle, it gives you a very different experience, because the beads don't just fall into the dish, they go on the inside, the outside, and there's multiple kinds of ways that we can read these. We could certainly use the major arcana, the tree of life beads, which are all the planets and signs, and I have a diagram that I'm going to be showing later on of the each one of them lined up on here as a key, and so we can look at that key. Maybe I'll actually bring that up now. I think right now I have an image set up to speak about later. Right, this is the universal hexagram that's on the back of the Crowley Thoth, or it's in the Crowley Thoth Tarot. I have it on my desk, and I also put it in my oracle box, my personal oracle, the one I created. I have it in there as well, the card version. It's kind of like the space that it occupies. It's like the image of the universe with respect to the deck there. Right? And obviously there's some dichotomies, and there's some dualities, and there's some different philosophies that we can consider with respect to what this symbol actually means. But in the meantime, let me see if I can pull up that key. There's some good information in here with respect to considering the, pardon me, wow, yeah, my computer is really so slow just navigating folders when OBS is open, but only when OBS is open. My computer is fine otherwise. That it's like hard to even navigate folders. It like jumps around, and it's kind of jarring to look at. It sort of gives you a headache. God, and it's so slow. It kind of, okay. Oh, there we go. Sorry about that. What is the? Oh boy! All right, I'm sorry. Give me a moment here. I should have had this prepared. I didn't expect to want to do it now, but I figured I would go with it, and I guess I'm kind of paying for that. It's so jarring with this delay that it's like it's hard to use the computer to even navigate around. So I'm trying to kind of go as fast as I can here, but it's like looking at it's actually making me dizzy, because it's like scrolling through. It's and then you think it's done, so you click the folder, but then it's still moving, and so you click the wrong folder, but then, and so the lag is really bad. All right, Forget it. I'm sorry, forget it. That will have to wait. Maybe tomorrow I'll have it set up so that we can look at that. And actually, frankly, I don't even remember what I was looking for, because I just spent so much time trying to find something that I don't even remember what I was looking for. Oh yeah, I took some pictures to set it up. So maybe I'll post them on the community tab. Yeah, maybe I'll post them on the community tab, because it's important to see the pictures. It's a very useful tool to kind of get a sense of the beads and what you're looking at when I show them. And so and this is just not going to work. I can't bring up the pictures or illustrate things without it skipping to the point where it kind of gets jarring. So I will try to go through the process as best as I can, and maybe again sort of just abandon the idea of attempting to teach on here, and maybe just do readings and then record videos of the teaching part so that I feel like I'm actually teaching. There's too many hiccups in between the knowledge, so that it's not going to be, or at least maybe I could be wrong, but it's not going to be absorbed. It's too scattered. No, it's too scattered. But so, yeah. And, again, eventually that won't be the case. Eventually this either there'll be a correction to the update, or Windows 11 will work better with OBS at some point. Because everything was fine until Windows 11 up. That was literally the thing that broke it. So, but yeah. So that said, where did I put the? I think I put it back in here, maybe. Yes. Okay. Alrighty. So I have this oracle that I put together for the lantern, right? And these beads are, what is going on? Like, it's so weird. Stuff's not working. Like, the calculator wasn't working. The calculator, it's so strange. Like, the stuff that's suddenly not, it almost sounds like a virus, but I don't. I've trust me, I've been, I just want to be clear. I've supported a 15,000 user network. I'm an MCSE, A+ certified, TCP/IP. I write databases. I can code in Notepad, right? So it's not that. There's something on. I have no idea what's going on. It happened after the update. It's has maybe something to do with my particular computer. Is one of the ones that just got quirky with 11. I would give anything to be able to roll it back, like to have the time to go through it and roll it back. But frankly, with the type of hardware that it is, it's not worth going through the heartache. And when I'm so close to getting a new computer, and it just has to happen for this to work. And so it's part of the process. And so it just seems silly to spend the time trying to roll this back, having to restore a bunch of software that is now tied to Windows 11. Try to turn OBS into a portable version so I can bring it back into the old OS, but it work with all the stuff that I've created since then. It's just a lot of, and I don't really have a lot of time during the day to do that. I have a very short window that I have for privates and other stuff and so I just don't have the time. I just don't have it. But so that said, though, the lantern, I had the ball which is hanging right inside of there. And you can put the beads in the ball and read it in the lantern, which is kind of like the form factor I was considering when I put this together. But another way to do that as well is to just keep them in the tin and read them in the tin, right? Which is another kind of good method. And you can overlay the pentagram in your mind with respect to the spirit center, the heart center, and so forth. And you read it that way, right? And this is a method that I've used many, many times in a small dish type format. And it's very effective for that. Now, this is also the combination of the male and the female put together. Right? So they're not separated for the lantern. That work's been done, and now it's the idea of recognizing that, right? So in this, they're not separate like they are with the other oracles. They're all ready together. And now we can choose to read it multiple ways. And so the first way I thought that would be interesting is to read the zodiacal. Okay, so what I'm going to do is to just essentially turn it so that the period of time that we're in, or the period of time of the birthday of the person you're reading, is pointed at you. So right now I have Scorpio. Okay, maybe I should use the red. That's a little bit better on camera. Okay, right, so I'm on Scorpio right now. And now what we can do is to just take the beads, introduce them to the environment, and now what's going to happen here is a couple of things. Some of them are going to roll into the spaces on the outside, and some of them are going to roll or stay in the middle. Now, this particular version has some smaller beads that may fall through these holes, and so just be aware of that. And now that's what this here is for. And so this goes into center, and these are actually poured into this hole, and they stay in here and can be shuffled around. And once it's lifted up, you'll see. And so it's an interesting experience. This is a fun way to read it, compared to the typical way of just putting it in the dish, which we're going to do later on to kind of compare the experience. So we're just going to take our beads and pour them into this hole, and so they'll be on top of the zodiacal here. Okay. I'm going to put this back in the lantern. Okay. Now, there's a few ways that we can read this. The first way that we can read this is to just take it as it stands and just look at the different areas. Like, so right now, we can look at Scorpio and get a sense of, elementally, what are we looking at here? Okay, because we know that there's a couple of ideas with respect to the sword, the pentacles, the wands, and so forth, and get an idea of the interplay here. Another way that this can be read is that once they're laid out, just put your hand on top of it and give it a once over. And some of them are going to float to the outside, some of them are going to stay in the middle. You'll see that a few beads fell out. And so there's a few things that you can decide to do with that. I typically read these as pay attention to me. Okay. And so the way that these beads fell out was this one here first, and then this one. This is a sword. And this is a cup. And so in this particular case, then, what we're looking at here is the airy part of water, which is the Prince of Cups. Okay? The Prince of Cups. And so the Prince of Cups is relevant to the reading tonight, which is actually funny. That's the card that came up before, which is the Prince of Cups. And so that's relevant. I'm going to throw them back in. But you'll get the idea. Like, if it came out, it's kind of like when you're shuffling the cards and a card pops out. It's like, oh, pay attention to that card that popped out. There might be something to that, right? Excuse me. Okay. So, and then now we'll take a look at some of these. Now, the period of time that we're in is at the bottom. There's a nice little clump of stuff going on there, and let's take a look at what that is. There's a few things that you can recognize here. For instance, these are the signs, right? And this is Scorpio, Sagittarius, right? This is a Libra. But these are also, this section that's right above it is the period of the deacons. And the deacons that are relevant to this period of time here, this is the 5, 6, and 7 of Cups. The 5, 6, and 7 of Cups. So specifically, the will is in the 7 of Cups. And we'll look at that in a moment. We'll actually have to pull the card now if you want. Let's just do it together. But what we have is the will in the 7 of Cups. So we're going to find the 7 of Cups. And again, this is the Hermetic Tarot. And now here we have wind or air. And this is in Scorpio touching a pentacle, right? And so what we have here is, if we read this from left to right, we have the Princess of Sword. And now let's look at the significators here. There's 2 significators that are relevant here. We have the first one, which landed right directly in the middle, but it's pointing in this direction. And over here we have a ton of swords. And it's moving into a bunch of the pentacles. And the area that we're moving into right here, this is Aries, right? And so we can see that progression moving in right here from Aries. And now this significator is pointed at Aries, and more specifically, it's pointed at that middle deacon, which is the 3 of Wands. So we're going to look up the 3 of Wands. Uncle Noob, how's it going? Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, hold on to your hats. Hold on to your shorts. The one, the only. Shushu, ladies and gentlemen, is in the house. We can begin. I've been holding back, but I don't have to do that any longer, so let's do this. So what we have is the 3 of Wands. I'm looking for the 3 of Wands. Oh, I love when that happens. Don't you love that when you make it all the way through the deck and you don't see the deck of the cards you were looking for? That's just, that's my favorite. 3 of Wands. And now this one was pointing at Aries, and so I'm just going to take that as, or was it this way or that way? And I kind of got the vibe that it was pointing at Aries. So I'm going to grab that, and that's the Emperor. Now, you know, it's it may seem interesting about why we're going through this process of to choose these cards, and that's because you'll find, and you're about to experiencing it directly here. Like I love doing it and demonstrating it live, because it's once you see it, it's empirical. It's no longer a question. When you derive the cards through the appropriate magical process, the knowledge is real. It's absolute. You're about to witness it. It already happened because I accidentally, I randomly pulled a card, which was the Prince of Cups, and the first card that we saw here was the Prince of Cups, and there's just a connection, and so the reading is flowing properly, and so we have these 4 cards here, and what we're going to do later on is pull out the Thoth, and we're going to do 4 more to reference the lower world, and we're going to see some serious shit, right? So, and I'm going to take these same beads, flip this over, read it elementally while we do the lower world. It's going to be an interesting reading to watch it all come together, and specifically using the Hermetic Tarot for that purpose, for the higher world black and white version. So, that said, let's take a look at what we have here. So the first card that we were looking at here is the 7 of Cups. Okay. The 7 of Cups is this card that is sort of the idea of things are not what they seem. You know, this is kind of the idea where, you know, if people were to kind of peek into your life, they'd go, oh, wow, they got their stuff together. Well, they seem pretty happy. or whatever, but and the card represents Venus and Scorpio. How perfect is that? There's an interesting symbol vocabulary for Scorpio, which is the idea of many different sort of veils, multiple veils that hide the truth behind it. That there's an ulterior motive behind that, and it's not always clear. It's usually not clear. Okay, so that said, what this refers to is that this sort of fantasy world of all these different cups that show these great things that everyone thinks you have, but you know the truth. That's not the case. There's something hidden in your actual world. It's not what people think. The Princess of Swords is in this position of the Divine Feminine. The Divine Feminine card, in this case, is the Princess of Swords. That's beautiful. What is the Princess of Swords? The desire to make manifest divine mind. More importantly, to make manifest her will. And notice that she's holding the sword upside down. Right. The idea here is, and they call this the Princess of Rushing Winds, because she's the sword. And there's some other symbolism in the card as well. Let me grab my glasses. There's a few things in this card that are important to look at. First of all the serpents. Right? There's multiple serpents on this card. There's one here, wrapped around. There's one here. There's one there. Right? There's one that's wrapping around this ornate Seduceus. That's like a scale in hiding. Very much like the Justice card of the sword, but sort of opposite of that, right? This is like a less mature version of the Justice card. This is the beginning stage of desiring to speak it. She just wants to be heard. There's a lot of really good ideas, but those ideas aren't enough. There's a desire here that's really intense to make it, to bring it into physical manifestation. It's not just about it being spoken. That's important, but being spoken by making it real. In the higher world, this is the emotional card. The Lord of Established Strength. This is a card of Aries, the Sun in Aries, which is very interesting because the next card is the Emperor, which is Aries. But we'll get there. So we have the Sun in Aries. The Three of Wands is a very interesting card. What it is it's the idea of the third. It's the third. You have a circumstance where there you are, and there is this idea of two others enrolled in this process. And you'll see how this is appeared here, where you have the one energy in the middle. That's that Sun in Aries energy, which is the dominant force here. And then the decision, the different perspectives. They're similar in the degree, right? One is the Sun energy, one's an Aries energy. But how they meet in the center is going to be the important thing. And we're going to get to that in a second here, when we get to the pentacle of the higher world. What we're actually talking about here. This is the Emperor. I love this card. It's just so interesting compared to some other Emperor cards. Like, right, and then this is really neat. Wait a minute, and this is only relevant to me, but you'll see in a second how cool this is. On this card are a couple of very cool things. This is just very neat. Accidental, but let's go with it. All these little balls, like the beads, right? How cool is that, right? He's got his wand is like a bunch of beads, and it's neat. But down here too, there's a honeybee. Now, why that's relevant is just strictly because of the fact that what I'm here to do today, this is cool. It's just neat how this worked out. This always happens on my channel. Today is to show the use of the pentacle. And that pentacle I made today because I came across the piece of wood. I had the piece of wood, and I came across the piece of wood because of a canister that is no longer used. It's going to go in the garbage. It came from a yard sale. It sat around forever, and it just, whatever. And so I thought, let me just use it for something instead. And here's what it looks like. This is so cool. How cool is this? This was the lid. Right now I have some beads stored in there, but that's where that came from. Right? And the honeybees. So, and it's just cool that the Emperor card came out, which is a bunch of marbles and a honeybee. It's just why? Because I chose randomly. Today's the day I'm pulling out the Hermetic Tarot. You know how often I use that deck? When's the last time you saw me pull that out? Love it. The energy that's going on here is like it's awesome. Thank you everyone for participating in it. It's great. Good stuff. Wow, love that. Anyway, let's look at the card real quick, and then we'll flip over the pentacle, and we'll read it the other way. The vulture. Son of the morning. I love that. Son of the morning. Sirius? Is it? Are they referring to Sirius? Are they referring to? Because Venus is the morning star, but the son of the morning would refer to potentially Sirius. I know that Horus refers to the sun typically. Osiris refers to the star Sirius. And sometimes Horus can refer to Sirius as well. But that's a different conversation. But that said there, and that's interesting. So, that said though, yeah, what we have here is the Princess of Sword enabling the Emperor. And there's a third person that's involved in this process of whatever this enabling is. And it's essentially designed around clearing the air of this Seven of Cup. It's the idea of kind of like making it real. Making it real. It just came to me. The idea here is the fact that the Seven of Cup is that everyone looks in and thinks that everything's great when it's not. So what this is an opportunity to actually make it right, so that when they look in and think it's great, it is great, as opposed to the situation that it is now. It's kind of like a transformative moment, and it's requiring a third. There's 2 already, but the 3rd is going to fix it. And she'll enable that to happen. The Princess of Sword and the Emperor. So now that's interesting. So I'm going to put these aside because we're going to use them in the next part of this reading, which is to use the Thoth Tarot. And we're going to flip this over and we're going to read the lower world version. Okay, so let me just make some space for that to happen. Which one is that? That is not from here. Might have been. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Okay. That is the female small card cup. No. That's the female small card pentacle. This is the female small card pentacle. Okay, so, in that particular case, then, that would have been, that's the... Okay, hang on a second. The 2 of Pentacle is the card of holding 2 ideas without attaching to either. It's sort of the idea of being in a state of decision, of contemplation of a decision, in respect to how to best employ the other in order to achieve the work, the goal, right? Yeah. And so let's find out what that is. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take it. We're not going to use it as a diacle. I'm going to flip it over. We're going to use the pentagram side, right? And now what I'm going to do is then take the pentagram side. I'm going to put these cards aside, pull out the Thoth deck, and we're going to use the Thoth underneath these to look at the lower world color version, right? I've done this reading before, and we're going to do it again here live. And so let's just go through that exercise. Okay. And let's take a look at what fell out. We have 2 cups and a pentacle. All right, 2 cups and a pentacle. That's the Queen of Discs. We're going to start with the Queen of Discs as a significator for the lower world version. So let me just put this in here, get it prepared. Okay. Looks like only 1 or 2 made it out. Let's just give it a quick look and see. None. Nope. 1. We had 1 cup. We had 1 cup. But let's first of all set these aside and then get that queen, because we're going to start with her. Okay, and so let's get that card ready. I need to make some space here. Have you guys seen this? Do you want psychic children? Like, seriously. Call me. I have all kinds of tools that I'm developing for children. They're great. They're great. And if you call me, they're free, because I'll teach you how to use it. If not, then just wait around. I'm going to eventually have them for sale, and then you can just buy them. It's up to you. I can lead a horse to water, but I can't make him do the backstroke. Trust me, I've tried. It doesn't work. It reminds me of a saying a friend of mine once said. He said, never try to teach a pig to sing. All it does is hurt your ears and annoy the pig. How did I wind up on airplane mode? So what we do, I'm just going to shake it around, open it up, give it a little flat. Okay, we're good. Now I do have a pentacle as well. Okay, so now let's first of all set these aside. Grab the Thoth. Put this aside. Oh, I'm throwing beads. What was that? That was a mini pentacle. Let's go lower. Let's give him 2 more. I'm feeling 2 more. So it's interesting, too. You'll see some of the elements orbit and some of them stay in the middle, and that's an interesting thing here, because some of them are direct influence to the element, i.e. they're inside, and some of them are a subtle influence to the element, and that's on the outside. And that only occurs if you use the pentacle. Right? So it's a nice little addition, because it's a different reading style. So now let's just move this aside. And set these out. Will that show up on screen? Do I have room? Nope. Yeah, sorry, I'm a bit cramped here. Unless you can see them, right? I mean, they're there. Okay. And I'll be referencing them as we go. Let's find that Queen of Pentacle. Give it another quick shuffle, and then we're good to go. I should be on top. That would be great. If she was on top, that would just be great. Tanamera, how's it going? Just woke from a power nap. Awesome. How's it going? It's good to see you. This plane with a pentacle I put together today for the purposes of using it in the tray and kind of giving it a little demonstration on how to use it for the elemental and the zodiacal and so on. And so right now I'm just combining the elemental portion with a tarot reading. And this is an upper-lower world reading. So I put 4 cards out. They follow the divine order of wand, sword, cup, pentacle in the higher world. And then in the lower world, wand, cup, sword, pentacle. I use the black and white to represent the higher world cards. And now we're referencing the lower world cards which are in color, and then we're going to go through a little mechanical thing that I do where I swap a couple to talk about how to speak and listen to facilitate the working, right? Which in this case looks like it's a woman who has a desire to assist in the creation of divine mind, this idea of the emperor, and to employ a third in doing that. Or there's this idea of there being a dichotomy between the thing that you think that you want and you have, but recognize is not what is wanted, but the thing that can be had seems out of reach. So there's this weird confusion about the thing that you actually have has nothing at all to do with your karmic consequence, and the thing that is right there, but you feel like you can't have. It's a strange kind of thing, and there's a third person that's going to facilitate that just being correct. Now, the Queen of Disc is the first card that came up in the lower world version of this, based on what was up down here. Right, it came from this section here, and so we're going to look at that. I'm going to go back to the tray, and then we're going to continue with the cards in a moment. Okay, so. And so what we're looking at here in the work of the Princess of Swords is the desire to make manifest the mind. So we're going to start at the idea of the mind, which is the section of the yellow here. And we want to make it manifest, so we're going to look at the transition from there to here. If we were looking at the will, we'd go this way. If we were looking at the heart, we'd go that way. Spirit, that way. But in this case, we're looking at making physically manifest, so we're going to be looking at this green section here, which is the portion of the pentagram related to the pentacle, the body, manifestation. Now, this is interesting because several very important cards came up here. It's very important beads. This is the karmic bead, this red one right here. This little cross here as well is the significator. It's referencing the combination of the sword and the cup. It's like the union of the sword and cup as one symbol. And it is also in that same spot, right? It's all in that pentacle. And then the final significator is right here, and we'll get to that later. But for right now, if we're moving from communication into physical manifestation, there's all kinds of karmic stuff going on in here to take advantage of that energetically. Take advantage of the opportunity that exists for that to happen. It's sort of like that there is a current state that there is this absolute sort of like energy waiting to be spent in the pentacle phase. It's like the pure potentiality that's sitting waiting to be tapped. And it simply needs to be spoken into existence by the woman. She's in the state of the sword that simply needs to speak it. Look what's waiting to happen. Look at the energy here. We have this karmic bead. We have this other bead that is the unification. It's sort of like the pentacle waiting to be made manifest. It's sitting here waiting to be made manifest. Right here is the same idea. We have a lot of heart. We have a lot of pentacle. These are two also karmic beads. They're the three. These are two of the three of the supernal triad. In the will, connecting. This one's actually on the cusp. It's touching the line between the will and manifesting. Let's let that camera catch up. Wow, that was a long lag. Right, so it's there. All kinds of good stuff here. And now this is the thing that look at all the wind is in between heart and mind. All the wind, all the swords are between heart and mind. So it's natural for this person to have these feelings and have the desire to speak them, but they're not. Because they're all over here. They're not being spoken into existence. Which is a shame, because look at all this energy down here. It's like an atom bomb waiting to be set off. And what a waste. All you have to do is speak it. And it's yours. All this is yours. Just speak it. Let's look at why that is. What's this thing holding you back from speaking? Let's find out. It's important. So that's going to be the crux of what we're reading today. And actually, let me put another line down so we can see what we're talking about here. We're looking at this combination here. We're going in from the idea of this desire to speak all this. All of these swords are what's in your heart, but it's not being spoken, and so there's the potential. This is all potential to manifest, but it's not happening. Why is that? Let's find out. Now, the first thing we can do, actually, just look at some of the idea here of the what is the transition and what's right prior to the transition of the area in respect to the mind and manifestation. If we look at the outer border here, we have a little bit of pentacle, a little bit of heart, and then all kinds of sword in the will that's subtle, meaning that this is higher world voice speaking. And this isn't your body speaking. This is your higher self speaking will. The cups are there to hear it, but again, it's not. The body's not talking. There's something stopping you. There's a fear, or maybe we'll find out. Let's look what that is.